Let's talk about using debt to build wealth. We often hear about that in an organizational context. A lot of organizations, and especially the mega wealthy, tend to talk about using the importance of using debt to build wealth. That using debt the right way builds wealth more quickly. So how does that translate to someone who's looking to get to their first million or $2 million? Here's what I did and how I used debt to build wealth. And I've got to say that my mindset before, and when I say before I did one of these two things, was the more debt you've got, the worse it is. So it's all about burning down debt, and usually more than usually, 90% of the time, that's a good rule. So let's get right into it. Let me share with you my experience. This, of course, is not financial advice for you, but it is my experience that can potentially enrich your decisions and making sure your decisions are informed about what you're going to do. Okay, back to day one. Day one for me, ever since I was a young pup, I didn't like the idea of debt at all. I do these videos all in one take. I save my time, so I'm not spending time editing them. Thank you for your patience with me and forgiving me for the odd slip up. I'll catch it, I'll correct it. Right. So I didn't like the idea of debt. In my earlier days when I had a credit card, it was certainly a case of I paid it off every month so I didn't have to pay any interest. So I made sure that whatever I spent on my credit card, I had that money already in the bank account to cover that. So that is bad debt, and I think that held me in good stead to have that mindset. When I was a student and in my final years of being a student, I bought a washing machine, and I bought that on hire purchase. And that was my first exposure to debt. The credit card came later. And the hire purchase was going to be 12 or 24 monthly payments. We're talking over 30 years ago. And I paid it off by my second payment because I just didn't like the idea of that debt. So I had the money and I paid it off. I didn't have the money when I took out the hire purchase, so I was focused for a couple of months, and so that second payment was the last payment to get rid of it. So that was my first exposure to debt. Didn't like it, wanted to stay on top of it. And the hire purchase agreement and setting that up didn't cost any extra. Okay, that's not the big thing here. Let's move along and get to the big thing. Then, as I said, credit card, but that was never really debt because I always had the money to pay that off. I think over all the years I've had a credit card, and you needed a credit card, especially for the early online sales over the net. You needed a credit card to buy it. Now you can do it with, of course, a debit card or through Poli. I don't know if that's pronounced the way it is, P-O-L-I, where you can do a live bank transfer. That stuff's all great. So if you can get away with not having a credit card, that's not a bad thing. Credit ratings aside, and I don't know quite how those work in different countries, so I can't talk about the importance of having a credit card to build a credit rating in other countries. You know that with the country you're in. But yeah, living without a credit card is not a bad thing at all. And some people have the mindset of whatever your credit limit is, that's your wealth. So if you've got $5,000 credit limit, then you've got $5,000. You haven't. That's not your money. And of course, if you're not paying that off by that end of the month, the end of month balance, they charge you pretty heavy interest on it. And that's the transfer of wealth from you to them. So yeah, credit card I've never been a fan of. Got it out of necessity, but I made sure I paid it off. Maybe over those 30 years, there was one or two times that I didn't pay it off by that date, and it would have been a case of it just slipped my mind, and then there was penalty interest. Did not enjoy that at all. So where did I get debt then, and how did I use the debt to build wealth? Well, the first one was a mortgage. I took out a mortgage to buy a house. That's okay debt in my mind to build wealth. So having something like a property, brilliant. I think that's a good thing. Now, there are some financial models out there where people can get richer through other avenues as opposed to buying a house. So they continue to rent, and instead of buying or saving up to buy a house, they might do something else. On the scale of risk, you've got entrepreneurship, so you start your own business and you invest your money that way, all the way through to something intermediary like the share market, and then you've got something that's a lot safer potentially, and that potentially might be putting it into a bank, but lower interest, and you might be going backwards that way. So there are some models, and certainly if you're saving money to put it into the bank and earning interest that way as opposed to buying a house, that's probably not a good model. But there are some models that you can remain a renter and get financially ahead than if you'd bought a house. For me, I wanted the stability of having a home. So debt number one was a mortgage. Now, why it worked for me is I was very aggressive in paying off the debt. It was a 25-year mortgage, and I think I got it done. This is a long time ago. It was definitely faster than half that time. So we're talking about 10 or 11 years. And paying more earlier has a bigger impact than later on. And that's simply because, of the proportionality between the interest and what you're paying off at the principal. So right at the start, every payment you make, say it's a $500 payment, you might only be paying $20 off the principal and $480 off the interest. So the bigger the dent you can make on that principal, then it changes that proportionality, and that means every payment after that, you're paying off more and more principal. So you're getting even more for your money. So get aggressive right at the start. Well, that's what I did anyway. So when I took out a mortgage in 1995, yep, there you go, 30 years ago, there was penalty rates for making extra payments, and I think the penalty rate was something like $1,000 or something like that. But because I was paying so much in principal, so much in interest and so little in principal, actually paying that $1,000 to pay off another $1,000 of principal was well worth it. Because when you're paying $480 in interest and $20 in principal, when you pay that $1,000 to pay off $1,000, you're way better up, even though you're paying that penalty, because that $1,000 you're paying off the principal in that one hit is equivalent to 50 times roundabout, maybe about 48, 47, the scheduled payments you would have otherwise made. And the interest on those scheduled payments is about 480, let's go 470, 460, and multiply that by the number of payments that you're paying off in that one hit. Gosh, I hope that makes sense. But all I'm saying is you do much, much, much better off getting aggressive. Now, don't think that I was just eating noodles all the time, though it probably wasn't that far from it. But what it meant is I wasn't wasting my money. So some of those snap decisions I was making, or impulsive decisions to buy maybe a chocolate bar, and I look at it and I go, it's only $1. I knew that $1 I spent on that chocolate bar might end up costing me $4, because that $1 would be the last $1 I pay off from my mortgage, because it pushes everything back by $1. So what it did is it helped me make better decisions. I wasn't so frivolous with my money because I understood the power of paying it off. And all of that came from having that debt, having the mortgage, and understanding how a mortgage works and the power of paying it off early. Understanding all those mechanisms enriched my understanding of it. So that debt motivated me to pay it off faster, which means I was able to save a lot. Then, here's the second element of debt. And a lot of people would say to you, don't do this. And it's probably not a good idea for most people. But because I became quite skilled, the word, let's just say well versed in paying off a debt fast, because I paid off my mortgage so fast, what I decided to do is when I paid off my mortgage, I got down to about, it would have only been $500 to go. It was less than $1,000. What I did is I took out $50,000 on my mortgage and I invested that in the share market. I had no investments in the share market at that stage. And what I wanted to do is balance my portfolio, because I had enough in property. I had my house. So now I wanted to divest and invest in something else, being the share market. Now, usually what people would say, and they're probably right to offer this advice, save up the $50,000 and then take it into the share market. Now, for me, when I got into the share market, it was in 2009, and all of the investment opportunities in New Zealand, there was a minimum amount of money that you needed to put together before you could invest. Then, for me, and for most people, it was $50,000. No broker would talk to you unless you had 50K. So that's what I needed. I wasn't prepared to save it up. And 2009, as some of you will know, that was 1 year after the global financial crisis. Now, little did I know, just going off on a bit of a tangent, when I put that $50,000 in 2009, I thought there was nowhere else but up for the share market. Now, the share market didn't really kick in until 2010. So my $50,000 investment that I took out as an increased mortgage against my house, the value of that went from $50,000 to $40,000 before it started to increase again. Now it increased and everything came right, but obviously, in hindsight, I would have waited another 6 months and gone in with my $50,000 with what the value was then at $40,000, so I would have got more shares for my money. But who knows, right? And those things happen. I weathered that storm, and I would say if it happens to you, just suck it up. It just happens. That's the nature of it. So I went from 50,000 down to 40,000, and then it went up after that. And up, you can see the data if you go online and ask for the indices for various share markets around the world. What they did from 2008 through to today, and by and large it's going up in the right direction. A couple of big blips along the way, COVID, and as I say, from 2008, 2009, that sort of thing. Anyway, so I took out a loan for the $50,000 because I knew I would pay it off fast, and I did pay it off fast. So I didn't sit on that $50,000. That $50,000 loan, and because I got the mortgage down to almost nothing, that $50,000, the balance of principal to interest payments, interest was very small and principal was a big chunk of the fortnightly payments I was making. I was making all my payments in my mortgage fortnightly rather than monthly. Just so you can keep chipping it through. It's more beneficial to do it fortnightly over monthly. So those were the two big elements of debt. One, to start to get capital and build my capital through owning a property. And then the second one was to get debt to get into the share market. Now, I can't tell you where that $50,000 ended up, because I've been investing, of course, on top of that ever since, and it's great, and it's given me a real balance in terms of what I own financially, in terms of my house, which of course is mortgage free, and also my share portfolio. Am I rich? No, I'm not. So don't hit me up for money. I'm not. You know who's rich. Everyone knows who's rich. They're all over the place, but I am comfortable. And that's what this is all about. How do we get to comfortable? So I'm going to go on a tangent, but if you want to get rich, the key would be you need to sell something. Not yourself, in terms of when I say selling yourself, I'm talking about working for someone else. You need to have your own business if you want to get rich. But that comes with a lot of things. And that's not what this video is about. But that comes with a lot of things like potentially fame, being known. I'm anonymous. I should be anonymous because I'm no one, and I'm okay with that. And being anonymous is a good thing. But yeah, if you get mega rich, of course, you got issues with fame and all of that. And it takes a lot of work and it depends how you want to balance your life. Anyway, that's a subject matter for another video on another day. But yeah, if that's what you want, that's the likely path when we look at balance of probability. If you want mega rich, then it's got to be something you can sell, that people want to buy, and that you've got control over the extent of the sales and you profit from those sales. So whether it's a product or a service or whatever, but basically we're talking entrepreneurship. Okay, so to recap, I've only really had two big debts in my life. Of course, I've got my credit card, still got my credit card, pay that off every month. I had that hire purchase. It was either 12 or 24 payments, but I paid it off on the second payment. I didn't like it, but don't be too anti-debt as long as your debt has purpose and you stay on top of it. So don't over leverage. That's the other thing I'll share with you now, actually. So I bought what they call a first home owner's home. So it's that typical home that is that first step on the market. And I did it up and I made sure it was comfortable for me and I didn't overcapitalize. But I stayed in a first homeowner's home until the age of, and this is quite late, up to the age of 47. But it was comfortable, it suited the purpose. And then when I moved to a bigger, nicer home, I didn't need a mortgage for that. I was able to jump across. Now, some of these things I'm sharing with you, quite personal. I'm feeling that now, I'm sharing it down the camera. But don't mistake, what I'm talking about is, I'm sharing with you my strategy, not to talk about me, but just so you've got an option in terms of strategies. So that strategy, I was comfortable. I didn't need a big home. For me, a big home just meant more cleaning and stuff like that. I wasn't squashed. The home I was in until I was 47 didn't have a dishwasher. So some added benefits with that. My kids, they were great. They would wash the dishes. So they spent time together. One would wash, the other would dry. And they did the same task all the time because one preferred washing, the other one preferred drying. And it was awesome to have them in the kitchen doing the dishes and just, they would chat. They would chat about school, they would chat about their friends. It was cool. Sometimes I'd turn the TV down low and just listen to them chat. And it was so cool to have them bond. Now, so I didn't effectively own my first dishwasher until I was 47 and I moved into this property. Now, I'm not saying go without a dishwasher. That's crazy. But what I am saying is, you don't, as long as you're comfortable, you don't have to overstretch. And part of my mindset was not to have my house over leveraged where the mortgage was so big. It was a case of keeping the mortgage small, or as small as I can, as a proportion. And I know the proportion is going to be big. If you've got a deposit that is 1/10 the value of the house, that's probably typical. But of course, if you buy, let's just use round numbers here. If you go for $1 million house and you've got $100,000, no, let's go 50. If you've got a $50,000 deposit for a $100,000 house, then your deposit's only 1/20th of the value of the house and the size of the mortgage, 1:19 ratio. But if you see a $500,000 house and it's quite livable, and of course it won't tick as many boxes as the $1 million house, but if those boxes you're looking to tick is the difference between the $500,000 house and the $1 million house, understand how much it's going to cost you to have those boxes ticked as the difference between the two houses. And if it's only a couple of things, then you really got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Because the mortgage, a $450,000 mortgage versus a $950,000 mortgage, that's not double. Depending how quickly you pay it off, that'll be triple or even quadruple in terms of the overall cost. And what that might do is limit your ability to move to another house later and have a smaller mortgage when you move to another house later, a bigger, more suitable house or something you've grown into. Now, the great thing is I had to do all this modeling about my finances and the break-even point and at what point, at what point should I pay a penalty to pay off a bulk of principal, and what should that ratio look like, and all of that. I had to do that modeling in spreadsheets, and of course, you know, your brain melts. The great thing is now with AI, and if you know how to put together a beautiful prompt in AI, it will do all the calculations for you. You tell it the scenario, you know, what your deposit is, what the house is, the cost of the house, the interest rate, and it'll tell you the cost over time. And you can compare different houses to each other. And so what you can do now is pretty clearly articulate what the cost is of the extra features between the houses, what that's going to cost you, given the price difference of those houses. AI will do all those calculations for you. So it's all there, but it's about making an informed decision. I didn't go crazy. I wasn't, it's the word frugal. Frugal comes with a lot of negative connotation, right? In terms of you're scrimping and saving and stuff like that. I didn't. I just didn't live a lavish lifestyle because I wanted that money to go into the mortgage to pay off the mortgage. But I did what I loved. I loved cycling, so I had a good road bike and I just rode a lot. I rode, I ate, I slept, I worked. That was it, but that was perfect for me. I loved it. I loved it. So, debt is good if you're in control of it and it has purpose. I think if I was to sum it up that way, that's how it worked for me. I didn't overreach at any point. The house I was in, it was still a first home buyer's house. I did move out too late. I should have moved out earlier, just for my own mindset, my own headspace. But no regrets. I think that's it. Look, what I'll say is, of course, not too many people are going to watch this video, which means if you ask a question, I'll be able to answer it in the comments. So yeah, take that opportunity now before this blows up. It's not going to blow up. And I don't want it to. But if you stumbled across this video and if it's given you some really rich insights, I'm pleased. I'm happy for you. Just click the like button. And that says to me that you got something good out of this video. And that is debt repaid. If you feel indebted to me because I've shared something that's going to save you thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, like it did for me, you don't have to do any more than click the like button. If you want to stay in the loop with these types of videos, so what these videos are about is making life easier, making life more simple, being able to perform better. It's one of those three things. And what I'm sharing with you is not concepts and principles that that are floating around. What I'm sharing with you is my experience of the things that worked and why they worked for me. And that's it. All right. I hope catch you in the next one. Take care.